Happy Monday, everybody. Here's hoping you had a fantastic weekend. Listen, if you're like much of the world, your eyes are trained on a South Carolina courtroom over the last week or two, specifically towards the end of last week and going into this morning, because Alex Murdaugh is expected to take the stand again in his own defense.
Yeah, and Katie Beck's been following it for us, so we're going to have kind of a wrap of maybe what you missed this weekend. We'll talk about it more coming up on the other side of it.
When accountability is at your door, Mr. Murdaugh, bad things happen.
In the hot seat for a second day, Alex Murdaugh facing a blistering cross-examination.
The second that you're confronted with facts that you can't deny, you immediately come up with a new lie. Isn't that correct?
I would disagree with that proposition that you're putting out.
Prosecutors hitting hard on Murdaugh's timeline inconsistencies on the night of the murders, and Murdaugh pushing back in his own defense, even becoming combative when challenged on his memory of finding his wife's body.
And you're dang right, I remember why I went to her and for what reason.
Because the only thing you're concerned about is yourself.
Answering some questions with clear certainty, addressing his 20-year addiction to opioids, admitting he had pills in his pocket even as he spoke to investigators the night of the murders.
So you're taking 60 a day or something like that?
There were days where I took more than that. There were days I took less than that.
And at other times appearing unsteady, struggling with answers about why after he'd returned from the kennels to the house close to the time of the murders, his phone was tracking 70 steps a minute as he was placing several phone calls in a row.
Did you get on a treadmill?
Went to the bathroom. No, I didn't get on a treadmill.
Jog in place?
No, I didn't jog in place.
Jacks?
No, sir, I did not do jumping jacks.
Prosecutors replaying for the jury Murdaugh's interviews with investigators, statements that Murdaugh now admits were lies.
I stayed in the house.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died.
The prosecution's repeated message to the jury, Murdaugh lied often and lied to many.
You're able to just do that so easily and so convincingly and so naturally, don't you?
I mean, that's not for me to judge.
That's true.
In a brief redirect, Murdaugh's defense team pointing to phone data, showing Maggie's phone, which was thrown by the roadside, was never moving in sync with Alex at any point after the murders. Murdaugh again denying he's a killer.
If I was under the pressure that they're talking about here, I can promise you I would hurt myself before I would hurt one of them.
So Katie Beck reporting for us there. Again, things get back underway in the courtroom down in Walterboro this morning. We want to know this morning, are you following this from home? Have you been watching the developments? Like I say, it's gotten worldwide coverage.
So not only are people following the trial, but you have the HBO documentary and then the Netflix documentary series that dropped just last week, which, you know, a whole other documentary can be made from the things that have come out in this trial. These don't even cover the trial. They just cover everything that happened, really giving you a detailed timeline before the trial.
Because if you're not familiar with the story, the family has some connections to controversy dating back some time, and some mysterious deaths that happened associated with the family dating back to like 2015. And so that's what a lot of these documentaries try to cover. I think it's interesting because if you read what most legal analysts say, as a established, successful lawyer, he's been disbarred, but as one, he's done fairly well on the stand and handled questions fairly well. And I think most people seem to think that he's handled himself pretty well. It's whether or not those jurors, think he's credible, because he has admitted now to lying to police about where he was when his son and wife were killed. And so do jurors think he's credible?
And, you know, they get into the opioid addiction, and he did check himself into rehab, and then the attempted murder for hire on himself. But, yeah, he was talking about taking, what, 70
up to 70
pills a day?
70 oxycodones a day. And said that it gave him energy, made him feel better. Admitted, as Katie Beck mentioned in her story, that he actually carried them on him at all time, even when he was being interviewed by investigators. But he said that made him paranoid.
Right.
And so that's why he was not, forthcoming about his whereabouts.
Because originally he said he wasn't there at all,
Yeah.
and then that Snapchat video from his son came out that placed him there. And so then his story changed after that.
Changed. So what we're expecting is that there's going to be a few more witnesses called after Mr. Murdaugh himself wraps up his testimony, and then they think they're going to have closing arguments by the middle of this week.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. And, a lot of people have said, too, like, he's going to prison probably for life anyway from all of his financial crimes.
A whole other...
And so regardless of whether he's found guilty or not guilty, this man will still spend most of his life in jail.
Yep. So let us know. Chime in. Are you paying attention? Are you watching this trial like a lot of folks are? Weigh in, and then we'll see you back here tomorrow morning for another edition of Wake Up Charlotte to Go.